Now in this part of the question then, we're given that x plus 2 is a factor of f of x and asked to factorise it completely. So how are we going to do this? Well, what I like to do is basically to think of this as f of x is identical to x plus 2 multiplied by another factor. And this factor is going to start with an x squared type term so that we get an x cubed. And in other words, it's going to be a quadratic factor. And you could guess this quadratic factor just by trial and error, but one way that I prefer to do is to get that quadratic factor, all you've got to do is divide both sides by this factor x plus 2. So in other words, the quadratic factor is going to be f of x divided by x plus 2. And so if I come over here, let's just put the quadratic factor as a subtitle. And what I've got to do then is divide x plus 2 into the polynomial f of x. In other words, let's just write it down as 3x cubed minus 5x squared minus 16x plus 12. Now if you're not familiar with algebraic long division, you'll find a tutorial on my website. Just look under algebraic long division. Now, how do we do this then? Well, what do you multiply x by to give 3x cubed? Now that's going to be 3x squared, so you put that up the top there. And then you do 3x squared times the x plus 2, and you put your answer underneath here. So 3x squared times x is 3x cubed, and then 3x squared times plus 2, well that's plus 6x squared. And we subtract these two away from one another to find out what the remainder is. So you have 3x cubed minus another 3x cubed, so that's 0. I won't bother putting that in. Be careful here, you've got minus 5x squared minus plus 6x squared, so that's minus 11x squared, and that goes underneath. And next you bring down the next term, which in this case is minus 16x, and you put it alongside this term here. And we start the process all over again. What do we multiply the x by to give minus 11x squared? And that's going to be minus 11x, and we put that up the top there, and we multiply the minus 11x with the x plus 2, and we get minus 11x squared, and then minus 11x times plus 2 is minus 22x. Once again, subtract to find out what the remainder is. Be careful here though, we've got minus 11x squared minus minus 11x squared, so that's 0. Again, I won't bother putting that in, but take care again here, minus 16x, subtract minus 22x. So that's the same as minus 16x plus 22x, and that's going to leave me with 6x. Bring down the next term, that's the plus 12, so bring that down, put it against the 6x, and that's plus 12, and we start again. What do you multiply x by to give 6x? And that's going to be plus 6. Multiply the 6 with the x plus 2, and you get 6x plus 6 2's are 12. And as you can see, we've got exactly the same value, so that when we subtract this, we end up with 0, no remainder. Obviously this is what we were hoping for, because x plus 2 is a factor. If we didn't get 0, we'd know that we've made a mistake somewhere in the calculation. Okay, so where does this take us? Well, it now tells us that f of x is identical to the linear factor that we're given already, x plus 2, multiplied by the quadratic factor, which is 3x squared minus 11x plus 6. So just pop that in there, 3x squared minus 11x plus 6. Now it did say factorise f of x completely, so that's suggesting that the quadratic factor will factorise again into two more linear factors. And indeed it does. You're going to have a 3x and an x at the front, and then two numbers that multiply together to give plus 6. Well, if you try several numbers out, combinations, you'll find it's minus 2 and minus 3. So we end up with 3x squared minus 11x plus 6 when this is expanded. Okay, well there you go. That gives us f of x factorized.